Hello, hello, good morning. Happy Monday, May the 19th. You are tuned into the TMI Show, the Ted Manila Information Show. I am Manila Chan. That over there is Ted Rall. And of course, we bring you way too much information. In this case, we're going to be talking about TMI of Joe Biden's junk.
That's too much information.
That's a lot
definitely too much information.
Yeah. I wonder if it was too much information for the old Joe to actually process. But we'll get into that.
What did the president not know, and when did he not know it?
Poor old man.
I haven't been practicing that one at all.
Yeah. No, lots to say about that. We're going to try to get through some news before we get into our big talk topic, which is, of course, Moody's downgrading America for the first time out of AAA status. We're now AA1. What does that mean? What does that mean for people's money?
Is that like a minor league baseball team?
I know. Yeah, it's. I feel like okay, we were AAA, AA1, steak sauce. Maybe it's better than the steak sauce because that's only A1.
That's true. It's double A1. Although double A1 also implies like small breasts, but somewhat less small than small breasts. I mean, is double A breasts, are those bigger than A's, or are they, there's double D. There's double D, right? Which is, I assume, D, bigger than D. Mm-hmm.
Yes, double D is bigger than D.
So double A must be bigger than A. It stands to reason.
I guess so. Mm-hmm. I guess so. I mean, we'll ask our buddy Bubba Horowitz about that and see.
So what's our national economic breast looking like is, I guess, the question.
Right. Mm-hmm. Are they full and
are they perky, or are they flabby and saggy?
Right.
Droopy. I think I know what Bubba's going to say. Yeah.
Look, if there was any trader in the world that would play along and have fun with that, it would be Bubba. So.
That's true. I suspect he will.
Yes, so I think he'll have a good laugh.
Trader, not traitor, not the same thing.
Yes, trader, not traitor.
You can be both, but it's, I've never heard of it.
But not in this case.
I've never heard of he was a KGB spy and also a stock trader. Like, that doesn't really happen.
It can though, Ted.
It could.
To be clear.
Theoretically. Yeah.
To be clear, Bubba Horowitz is a trader.
Yeah, no, and as far as we know, a patriotic American.
Yes, he even has an American flag blazer that he had custom made.
Right, I can't say that. I'm not that American. I'm not that patriotic. I am patriotic, but I'm not that patriotic.
Yeah, he's all kinds of patriotic.
Part of the problem is I don't like our flag. So even
if I said that before, I think our flag is nice. But
have you ever looked at like a chart of all the other the rest of the world's flags? I mean,
I have a whole world flag chart that my son has, and we look at it like every day, and we have
cool
maps, and so there are cooler. Like, I like Greenland's flag.
Greenland has a great flag.
It's really cool.
It's also kind of evocative. So the Kyrgyz flag is awesome.
I don't know if that one stands out in my mind, but anyway, I like the American flag. I also think the Union Jack flag is
that's a cool flag,
aesthetically pleasing. I think that,
although as a cartoonist, it drives me insane. It's hard to draw, and here's the thing: it's not like what you think. So so my son was telling me recently about the Mandela effect, which is where you remember things that are not actually true. And it you think of the Union Jack as sort of just it's sort of like the Confederate battle flag, right? It's the St. Andrew's Cross, and then there's
I think the stars and bars are,
but it's not. It's stars and bars, but it's actually it's off center. The Union Jack is off center, so it doesn't it doesn't hit the bottom in the corners. So if you're trying to draw it, if you draw it from memory, you're not going to get it right unless you're English, I'm sure. If you're English, I'm sure you know it. Oh. But I
guess I never noticed.
No, it's a pain in the ass to draw, really.
It's off center. I have to go look at it now because I have some Union Jack stuff. I like flags, but yeah, I like ours. I think ours looks nice. And there are a couple, I
think we should not have done the whole adding stars. No one does that, right? Who else changes the flag? Oh, we added a new province, so we're going to change the look of the flag.
And now we're locked into the 50.
I mean, imagine if we had like 175 states, how stupid it would be.
But no,
I
I
mean,
think part of the reason Puerto Rico or Guam or any of those places have not become states in DC, part of the reason is because our branding is stuck.
they're
We're stuck
worried
at
about
50
that.
stars.
Although there is as resident friend of the show, Scott Stantis, who's also a vexologist, flag expert. He collects flags. He has like a dozen flagpoles in his backyard. He flies the flags of like, if it's like Guianan Independence Day, he'll fly like the Guyanese flag. He has all the flags. He has them all organized. He's a total flag dork. And so anyway, he would. So what were you just saying? You were just saying. I went off on a tangent here. Sorry, I'm like biding out.
I don't know. Oh, Bubba's jacket.
Nah, before that. I mean, after that, just now. Oh, whatever. Okay.
Well, that was the whole point of that, and he's joining us a little bit later in the show. So, at about the 10:30 mark. So we'll get to some news. There's a couple of big things. Which honorable mention.
Yeah, I remember. I was saying. There is a design already in place for a 51 and 52 star flag.
I don't think so. I
well,
think
there is.
It'll look ugly. It'll look ugly.
Well, we shouldn't have gone beyond 48. We had a nice even row when we had 48.
But 50 is an even number.
Yeah, but it doesn't. 50. If you look at them, they have to stagger them, right? I think it's seven, then 6, then 7, then 6, or something like that.
It's like staggered, like every.
Yeah, but you don't. But when it was a nice even 6x8 grid when it was 48.
Yeah.
Like nice and.
Well. So with that, the honorable mention I wanted to say was over in your neck of the woods, at least sort of at the Brooklyn Bridge. Like, what the hell was that? The Mexican decorative naval ship or whatever it is. Like, it looked like a ship from like the olden days, the days of yore.
It's an old sailing ship type thing. Obviously, it's not an old sailing ship.
This is what drives me crazy. It's like when big rigs drive under like land bridges. And they are too tall. They're stacked too high.
That's what happened.
That's what happened at the.
Although not really. That's not really what happened. That's not really what happened.
One of the masts, like
yes. So, but the point is,
Bridge.
So here's the thing. Okay, so the Brooklyn Bridge actually is not like straight across. Okay, so it's not like going under a bridge where it's only 12 feet clearance all the way across. This bridge arcs up. Okay, so you're supposed to, if the ship had passed beneath where it was supposed to go in the middle,
highest point,
no problem, or anywhere really. But what happened is it got loose, it got unmoored because someone didn't learn their Boy Scout knots well enough, and it basically got started floating down the East River, which is for those who don't know, it's an estuary. It's not really a river. Anyway, it has very ferocious currents. Doesn't look like it. The East River has claimed a bunch of ships over the years. There's even a treasure ship at the bottom of the East River that nobody can recover, full of gold, because it's hundreds of feet down and the currents are vicious. Okay, nobody can get. So the East River is treacherous navigation. Anyway, it got caught. It like got loose and then like drifted off, and they couldn't like recover. And I guess I'm going to just say that like if you're a sailor in 2025. If you're like the best sailor in the world, you're like not as good as like the shittiest drunken sailor in say 1705, right? It's just like, it's not part of our culture anymore. So these guys, they didn't react quickly enough, and it drifted off, and so it ended up passing underneath the shorter part of the bridge where there was no clearance. That's what happened.
Oh my God.
Well, and then the mast broke. The mast broke, and in an accident that could have happened in 1705, the mast broke and like basically killed 2 people and critically injured like 10 more.
Yeah, that's what a weird story. And then to see the videos emerge was, I mean,
and there was a lot of blood.
Old-timey ship. Oh God, awful.
It's also weird.
I saw somebody dangling from the mast.
Mexico, very strange. The whole thing, like
very strange.
I mean, I got to say, my grandfather, my French grandfather, he was a sailor on the last of those old timey sail ships. He was, because he was so old. I mean, he was inducted before World War I at the age of 9, forcibly inducted into the French Merchant Marine. His mother died. His father remarried. His mom was like the wicked stepmother, like get rid of the kids. So,
Oh,
so 9 years
crazy.
old, they marched him down to the little dock there in Brittany, put him on. I've been there, and now it's beautiful, but it was a shithole back then. And they shipped him off. So
Oh my
he
God.
was tiny because he was a kid. So
He's
his
9.
job. So because he's small, they send him up to the top to unfurl the sails because the little ones had less surface area, so they were less likely to be blown off on the high seas. But it happened.
Well,
So
it was that kind of ship.
it was
So,
that kind of ship. Although I think the ones he did were bigger than that.
oh
The
my
Spanish
God.
one, I saw the Mexican one. It
All
wasn't
right.
that big. It was not that big.
It was decorative, is all I'll say. All right, let's get into some news before Bubba hops on.
All right, let's do it. President Joe Biden has metastatic prostate cancer. He's 82 years old. The former president's office says it's an aggressive form of cancer, which is now metastasized into his bones. It's stage 4. It is categorized as having something called a Gleason score of 9, which makes him in grade group 5, the most severe category. Most guys get diagnosed with this before they start showing any symptoms, as early warning signs of prostate cancer are rare, according to Johns Hopkins. The severity can depend on the location of the cells and how advanced the disease has become. Symptoms include urinary issues, like you have to pee all the time, weak or interrupted flow, blood in your urine, and trouble either holding in or beginning your urination. Other symptoms include difficulty getting and maintaining an erection, painful ejaculation, and pain or stiffness in your lower back, hips, or upper thighs. I won't make any Joe Biden jokes here. Urinary symptoms such as frequent urination or difficulty urinating are actually quite common in older guys and are usually due to benign stuff like having an enlarged prostate. But in this case, Biden's office said that his symptoms led to a prostate exam that led to the discovery of that small nodule. If you've been following the news, you remember that from a week or two ago. Further testing then determined that it was cancer. Some urologists and Ted Rall were surprised that the 82-year-old, sorry, not Ted Rall, that he underwent prostate cancer screening at all, because routine screening for men over 75 is controversial. Most cancers at that age are slow growing, and overtreatment can do more harm than good. One statistic, I don't know if it's still true, that I had heard a while back, my father-in-law died of prostate cancer, was that basically your odds of getting prostate cancer are about the same as your age. So if you live long enough, eventually you get it. I'm going to call bullshit on this story. We were talking about this with producer Robbie before the show, and it is a stone cold fact that whether the president likes it or not, the president's ass is dragged to Walter Reed Medical Center at least once a year, probably more often than that, like when they start to feel under the weather. And they're given a full workup, including PSA. And there is no fucking way that a year ago, when Joe Biden was still running for president, that they did not know he had prostate cancer. This is a slow-moving cancer, a fast-moving, slow-moving cancer is what we have here, right? This is the fastest-moving of all. This is garbage, okay? This was their plot. Their deal was that the Democrats decided, and it's really serious. It's a coup d'etat. They wanted to reelect a guy. The mental acuity thing was like, that was happening too. It's been happening for at least 4 years.
That was on full display.
For anybody who wanted to pay attention to it, which was not most Democratic voters. But then everything, but this they knew about, and they were like, okay, we'll just get him elected. And then it'll be like the election of 1872. U.S. Grant was running for re-election as a Republican and won. Horace Greeley, his Democratic opponent, the publisher of a New York newspaper, was running against him. He was the Democratic nominee. The dude, Horace Greeley, died before Inauguration Day. So if he'd won, he would have died. Biden would have been reelected and would have died. Kamala Harris would have ascended to the throne, which, of course, prompts the question: why not just why not have him step down
Do that.
2 years ago and let her take the reins then, and then basically run with the benefit of having been president the way that LBJ did in 1964 after the Kennedy assassination, and he won overwhelmingly, right? So,
right, the incumbent.
Yeah. So I mean, but there is, I think, 0.1% chance that this story is accurate. I mean, it's like he's the president of the United States. He sleeps inside. Okay, he's not a homeless guy. I mean, it's like anyone who has, who has access to Medicare is going to be screened, is going to be tested for this. He's had this for years. He probably had it before he was elected.
Yeah. Look, little old Manila, right? Little nobody Manila found out at stage 0 about my breast cancer. And I'm a nobody, and I just have regular healthcare, regular insurance.
And breast cancer moves a lot faster than prostate cancer.
And I'm just a regular
I mentioned my
person.
father-in-law. Guess how long he had it? 12 years before he kicked. 12 years. Okay. Now, granted, he was the guy was a fucking animal. Okay. I mean, he could jump from 65 years old. He could jump and land on a headstand, and then do headstand lifts
fit.
like 100 times. Oh, fit. He was a monster. But Joe Biden.
That's what they said about Joe Biden.
Joe Biden's physically fit too. He is.
Yeah, that's what they say. They say that his blood labs and that physically for his age that he's actually really great. But to your point, me being a regular Joe Schmo or Jane Schmo in my case, right? If my doctors could find a stage 0 breast cancer from regular breast screening because they saw little tiny specks of these things that look like salt in my, when they do the boob smash. Can you imagine the type of health care and providers accessible to the president of the United States?
Can't even imagine. Whether you like it or not, I know Trump is not like a big team doctor person, right? They drag his ass off, whether he likes it or not. He has to go.
It's part of the job. That's why it just doesn't pass the sniff test to me that the Biden team, Jill or the family, whoever, maybe Joe didn't know because of his mental acuity. Maybe Joe didn't know, but there is 0 chance to me that Jill or Hunter or the grandkids, that the family didn't already know that there wasn't a team of doctors out there that have been keeping hush about this for years. And this goes right in tandem with today, Jake Tapper's stupid book dropping about, what we didn't know about his mental acuity. And this weekend, Axios dropping the full 5-hour interview with Robert Hur, right?
Which I listened to. I don't know if you heard it.
I didn't listen to all 5 hours, but I definitely skimmed.
I listened to about 3 hours worth.
Oh my God.
It's rough. Well, I was driving. It's really.
To Robert Hur's point, Robert Hur said.
By the way, Robert Hur is owed. He is owed an apology by the media and by the Democratic Party,
by Jake Tapper, who was one of the people that assaulted.
He was accused of being like a mean, vicious Republican hack, and he's completely solicitous, professional, kind, and polite throughout the encounter. There's no question about it. You know who else is owed a fucking apology? DP, Dean Phillips. Dean Phillips, so I was reading the Washington Post, and they're like, well, all the Democrats thought, because now we're still litigating the Jake Tapper book, which comes out like in a couple of days.
I thought it was today.
Or maybe it's tomorrow or something. But it's this week. Anyway, we're all litigating that. Like, what did the president not know, and when did he not know it? And the and one of the big, one of the discussion points is like, well, why wasn't there a primary? Why didn't anybody challenge him? Well, someone did. Okay. And Dean Phillips, a Republican, representative from Minnesota.
Oh, right.
His whole shtick was, I'm running against Joe Biden because I agree with everything Joe Biden, 100% of his agenda. I love Joe Biden. He's great. He's my favorite. I will continue everything that he does. He's just too old and he can't carry the torch forward. Elect me and I will do that. He was he was marginalized, savaged, insulted. he was destroyed by the Democratic Party, as you could see. Obviously anyone who knows about the Democrats knows that's what they do if you challenge the dominant narrative. And it's so funny, like Tapper interviewed some Democrats who said, well, I didn't want to make Joe look bad, that's why I didn't run. No, that's not why you didn't run. You didn't run because the DNC would call you and say, nice career you got there. Be a goddamn shame if something would have happened to it. Like, wouldn't want it to just burn down. So that's what they did to Dean. And like, I didn't vote for Dean Phillips because I don't like Joe Biden's policies. He's far too right wing and genocidey for me. But like, which also brings up another point. But I just want to say Dean Phillips is owed an apology.
Totally.
He did exist, and he did present. He raised the alarm. The Russian, the English are coming. The British are coming. Everyone's like, "Fuck you! I'm not coming out." To Lexington or Concord. Fuck off. So, okay, and then there's like we're supposed to feel sorry for Joe Biden, this man who's just presided over the slaughter of over 200,000 people. So there's a lot to unpack.
I know. I agree, and I'm going to speak to exactly what Robert Hur presented us. He said, I cannot put this, I'm paraphrasing, but he says, I cannot put this man on the stand because it'll be a guaranteed loss because jurors will sympathize. He's a sympathetic character. He's going to come off like an old man who just means well and just can't put his thoughts together.
Although I don't know about the means well part, but sure.
Well, right. Well, he was being, I think,
he was trying to be nice.
He's being generous about it because this was the sitting president at the time. So Robert Hur, I don't think his career has been ruined, but he's definitely been maligned by the media. And they owe him, and Jake Tapper among them, primarily, I would even say, owes Robert Hur a big apology, a big mea culpa. And this whole issue of his health, for all the things we can say about Donald Trump, he immediately issued like a well wish on Truth Social. He and Melania.
Yeah, but I mean, come on, that secret behind the scenes. He's like,
maybe, but this is not the first time that Joe Biden has dodged the Grim Reaper. He dodged two aneurysms. My mom is a survivor of one of them. You're never the same. Like, my mom is not the same. Like, she major brain surgeries, a coma, all of this stuff. You're never the same. Somehow Biden dodged, I don't know, people continually elected him out of Scranton, I guess, or wherever the hell, Delaware. Even though it's arguable that, your brain, look at John Fetterman, your brain is never the same after these things, even if you recover. And I don't know, people kept electing him. And this is all before 1990, by the way, the two aneurysms he suffered a couple of little stints with minor skin cancer, like on his face or on his nose, or, that happens a lot.
That's no big deal.
Skin people. That's no big deal.
Yeah.
But if they're able to detect those on him right away to where it wasn't a catastrophic outcome, how could it possibly be even possible that as sitting POTUS that they didn't make you cough, Mr. President, cup and cough. Come on. That's another cover up.
Yeah. So so look, Manila, what I'm curious about here is why aren't the Republican in the House exercising some oversight? I mean, this is their job. It's their duty, and they could make political hay out of it. I mean, I have my theories, but why do you think they don't seem inclined to investigate Bidengate? I mean, basically, I was talking to Stantis before the show, and he said, and he's right, this was a coup d'etat. I mean, so in a democratic process, the voters would have been told, at least in 2020, they would have been said, hey, we've got this senile guy. Do you want to elect him? And then, if they said, or in 2024, hey, we've got this guy who's dying of cancer. You want to, you want to vote for him? And if the American people decide to elect him anyway, hey, that's democracy in action. The voters are idiots. Fine. But that's not what happened here. Okay. What happened here was the voters were not told the truth about what was under the Biden label. Inside that can was a brain that had turned to pudding, and as it turns out, balls that are rotten. So basically, the guy's got like, gnarly dead testes, and it's spread into his bones and into his blood. Obviously, it went into his blood before it went into his bones. So like, okay, if the American people had been told that and said, yeah, all things considered, fuck Dean Phillips, fuck Donald Trump, this is the guy we want, I'd have no problems. I'd be like, well, the American people, they need to read more.
But there was no
I mean, that's not what happened here. They were lied to. They were told, no, this guy, he's fine. And we can get into the whole Donald Trump cognition issue. We will on another show.
Another day.
But I mean, but we don't have time for that. But my point is, Democrats have no standing to talk about that now. But why are Republicans not? Why are they not doing anything here? I mean, part of it is, I know you sort of, when your opponents are fucking up, you stand out of the way and you just let them do that.
Of course.
But I want to know who knew and when did they know. I want to know.
That's it.
I want to know who started the war with Russia. Was that Tony Blinken? It wasn't Joe Biden. Who was it? I mean, I want to know. I want to know who was really running the country for the last 4 years. I want to know which members of the media knew exactly what was going on and like didn't say anything to the public, because those people shouldn't work anymore. Or if they are working, we should just know, oh, that person should person should wear the scarlet S for senility, right?
As Americans, as voters, and I'll make this the last word because we got Bubba hanging out in the virtual green room, but this calls into question even more. If we weren't already curious to know what the last 4 years was actually like behind the curtain, we deserve to know who the Wizard of Oz was. If he wasn't working upstairs, because there's still the Wizard of Oz downstairs.
The wizard's still behind the curtain. He or she or they are still doing their shit right now. So this could and would happen again.
People know I think our main takeaway is
why should we look backwards? You're like, well, now we have to deal with Trump. We should. Oh, really? So in 1945, we don't have to look backwards and see who's responsible.
We don't need to do an autopsy on this.
Yeah, we don't have to. We don't need any Nuremberg trials, right? No one should be held responsible. I mean, it's a coup. I mean, it's a coup, and it's not, by the way, like it was 4 years of a senile guy presiding over like an awesome economy and like an awesome and peace and quiet, like under Joe Biden's cabal. It was a beautiful halcyon time. No. Right? This was like there were a lot of mistakes that happened in the last 4 years. And
we deserve to know.
I mean, 200,000 Palestinians deserve to know, right? I mean,
hundreds and hundreds of thousands of Ukrainians and Russians,
they deserve to know too. Yeah.
The moms of all those dead soldiers deserve to know.
I think some Afghans who've dropped off planes onto rooftops in Kabul, they deserve to know.
So I hope Robert Hur gets brought back and gets put into an investigative role to find out about who knew what about Biden's health at the time. Because I mean, what's it matter now? He's not president anymore. He's just a piece of history.
It matters now because the people who made this happen are still there. Okay,
they're there.
It's like knowing, like, okay, how did 9/11 happen? It's like, well, the people who let 9/11 happen, or should have known, they stayed there. That's the problem. I always tell my son, make any mistake you make, never make the same mistake twice. This is about avoiding making the same mistake twice.
All right, let's leave that there.
Well, we have it. Looks like we have an ad.
We have to do an ad.
If Robbie puts it up, I can immediately bang through it, and we'll bring in Bubba. Here we go. Thanks, Bubba, for waiting. Still haven't tried 1775 coffee? Now here's your shot. The 1775 starter kit just dropped. There's only 1,000 units left. You're getting the bold, dark roast that hits harder than a CNN fact check. The smooth medium, that's not that hard. The smooth medium roast and the Vitality mushroom coffee for clean energy and laser focus, no crash. I'm curious about the mushroom coffee. I like mushrooms. I don't know if mushroom coffee would be good. All single origin, small batch, toxin free, and mold free. Plus, you're also getting a gold spoon clip because freedom isn't scooped with plastic. That's actually a good idea. A frother strong enough to stir up your coffee, and your mother-in-law's political opinions, and a black 1775 tumbler that says, I don't take life advice or caffeine from a woke sea witch. $170 worth of coffee and gear, yours for $99. This is for the ones who've been watching 1775 blow up on Rumble, wondering if it's actually worth it. Spoiler, it is. Go to 1775coffee.com/studio and grab your starter kit before they're gone. Bold beans, clean fuel, and a morning routine that stands for something just like Rumble does. Start your day with coffee that actually backs what you believe. Okay, let's go ahead and bring in Bubba.
1775 coffee.
Were falling on Sunday evening as investors reacted to that Moody's downgrade of U.S. sovereign debt from AAA status to capital A, small a, 1 AA1 on Friday. Moody's warned that the U.S. is on a trajectory to increase spending. When are we not? Citing the potential extension of Trump's 2017 Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, big beautiful bill which could add around $4 trillion to the deficit over the next 10 years without the government revenue to keep interest payment ratios at levels comparable to other sovereign nations. We're a sovereign nation. I didn't know that. Moody's was the last major credit rating firm to downgrade U.S. debt. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, whose name should be Todd, I think, played down worries about the action by Moody's after Friday's market close, telling NBC that ratings from firm actions are a lagging indicator. Back in April, Trump announced country-specific tariffs on goods from dozens of nations, then suspended them for 90 days, including with China, while the U.S. negotiates bilateral deals, keeping a 10% across-the-board levy on imports. That remains in place. Bringing us, as always, to talk about the economy, we're joined by Todd Bubba Horwitz, market maker, CEO, and founder of BubbaTrading.com. Thanks, Todd, for joining us here on the TMI Show, and happy Monday.
It's great to be with you. Always great to be with you guys. A lot of fire and a lot of excitement.
That's right, Bubba. We were expecting your American flag blazer today.
You know, I didn't put it on because I'm really pissed off at the way that Moody's did this whole debt downgrade. It's not a problem that they did the downgrade. I have no issue with that because, again, we are in so much debt until our government, who's ever in office, decides to put and stop spending so much money that we don't have, okay, it's a problem. But for Moody's to release that announcement into a closed, illiquid market on a Friday afternoon is about as dumb of a thing as you can do. Now, fortunately, it did not create massive amounts of panic. Even at its worst, the markets weren't down that much overnight. But at the end of the day, how can you release information that is worldwide market affecting into an illiquid closed market? Makes absolutely no sense. It's ignorant. It's dumb. It's stupid. And
why do you think they did that? Do you think that was an attempt to do
on a Friday,
a stupid attempt to do a Friday media dump, or what?
I think it was and I think somebody else was trying to send a message, and I think they're trying to send a message to Trump. This is, to me, if you look at it, this is the other side. You've been talking all about the cabal and all these other things, which I actually believe that there's other people running the country. I don't believe that, Biden was running the country. I believe there's people that are trying to do things behind the scenes behind Trump. And again, I think if you ever watched the show, The Blacklist, I think a lot of that stuff is true and factual. Yes. When it comes to this government that we have, because there's too much money behind the scenes and there's too many people stealing or grafting too much money with all the bad deals we had, which is hence why we're in this massive amount of debt that we have.
Well, Bubba, what's this going to do? I mean, you're right. They try to kind of sneak it in there on a Friday where markets don't have the chance to respond to it. It's kind of a dastardly thing. Asian markets, I don't know how they were responding to it, but they were probably gleeful because I think what we were expecting was U.S. bonds. Treasuries were gonna have a bad day today because now nobody trusts that our economy is going to be any good. We're not going to pay our bills. So I think the Asian markets are probably going, hey, come invest with us. We're nice and stable. Americans, they don't pay their bills.
Well, I think what a lot of people don't realize is that, the bond markets are getting hammered, the futures, which means interest rates are going higher. The debt is higher risk, which again, if you believe that America is going to fail, then obviously you'd want to be a seller. But this is actually probably an opportunity because the interest rates, you're going to get more money for your interest rate that you're going to get by investing in fixed income and markets like that. Because at the end of the day, again, if you remember, you may not be old enough to remember, but when New York was going bankrupt, they were giving away bonds because, again, it was a very high risk trade, but it really wasn't that high risk. How much real risk is there in the United States failing? Okay, that's the question you have to ask yourself. What is the real risk of the United States failing? And I would say it would be close to zero because, again, if we fail, then the entire population fails. And I think there's a much bigger problem.
It's not zero, but it's close to zero for sure.
I mean, it's certainly, this is the third time the U.S. debt has been downgraded, first time by Moody's. But again, these rating agencies are a bunch of manipulating bullshit people anyways that have no clue and are doing things for another purpose. The purpose wasn't to say that the U.S. debt is no good because we'll just print more money. And one of the things that everybody has to remember is that if China, for example, wanted to sell all their notes, all their bonds that they've bought, because listen, let's face it, China is our biggest creditor. Okay. We could just devalue our currency. Okay. There's not that much of an issue. We own China from a debt standpoint because they cannot sell our debt because at the end of the day, if they sell it, we can devalue and tell them to go scratch. So at the end of the day, these agencies are all nonsense and really don't give you the true picture of the economy. It's going to create higher inflation. It's going to create less sales. It's going to hurt the overall system because mortgage rates are going higher. So housing is already in trouble. It's going to create more trouble when mortgage rates are higher. So this did no good for anybody. And it was really with no reason, in my opinion.
How do you think Jerome Powell will respond to this? Do you think he saw this coming when he gave the rate forecast for the rest of the year? Does this have any impact?
It could have a possible impact. This could be a chance to force Jerome Powell to lower rates. I hope not. I think that would be a dramatic mistake. The Fed has never made the right decision. They've been always lagging. They're a lagging indicator. They're always behind the scenes. They've done more damage to any of our economy than ever help. And starting with Alan Greenspan was when the Fed really started to fall apart, the all-time greatest bubble builder. But I think that it could force the Fed to cut rates. But that is a mistake because if we go back just to the most recent rate cuts, when they cut rates in September, the lending rate from the Federal Reserve to the banks or from bank to banks have gone down 100 basis points. Okay. The borrowing rate that you and I have to pay has gone up over 100 basis points. So the whole benefit of all this rate cutting and what's happened has only benefited the banks. So what does that tell you? Well, it tells me that the banks have a little bit of a problem. So they need a bigger spread because of all the bad lending that they've done. Because I believe if we had got a true stress test on the banks from independent auditors, we would find out that the banks are dramatically over leveraged and they need a lot of help and could create a replay of 2008.
Bob, I'm curious your take also what happened this weekend with Donald Trump getting in a Twitter fight with Walmart. I'll paraphrase, but the president basically told Walmart, Walmart was all last week complaining about how Donald Trump's tariffs are going to force the price hikes across Walmarts all across the country. Everybody shops at Walmart. I don't know anybody that doesn't shop at Walmart. Maybe I just don't know the right people, but Trump basically told Walmart, hey, shut up and you eat it. You guys have been making billions of profits already just last year alone. Shut up and eat this. Is that the right way to tackle this?
I agree. Suck it up. Okay. Again, let's look back in history a little bit. Okay. And look at, commodities are obviously always a big play when it comes to grocery stores or Starbucks. If you go to Starbucks, every time coffee went higher, Starbucks raised their prices. Has Starbucks ever brought their prices down when the price of coffee came down at wholesale? No, they've never once dropped their prices. Okay. Walmart, all you have to do is look at their earnings reports and see how much profit they're actually making. These tariffs are going to have no effect on Walmart. They're going to find ways to get around it. They're going to build cheaper. So again, I think I love the tariffs. I wish he wouldn't have gone back to the 10% across the board. I wish he would have stayed where he was. But I think Walmart is taking advantage of the consumer here. And I think when you see their earnings come out the next quarter, their profits will be higher than ever, because this is what always happens when these big companies get into this deal. Same with the oil companies. We need so much oil. Oil's not expensive enough, blah, blah, blah. In the meantime, when they come out with earnings, they come out with record profits. Record profits tell me that they don't need to raise their prices, that they can stand through the storm. And if this becomes a real problem down the road, then yes, they may have to raise prices. But to jump to raise prices before they've even bought one item that has been affected by those tariffs, to me, is just price gouging on the case of Walmart, looking to make a few extra dollars on the balance sheet.
Bubba, are you saying that they're like the oil companies who will start increasing gas prices long before the increases in crude oil prices have even affected the gas that's in the pumps at this point? Or is that what you're saying? Are you saying
that's exactly
greedy bastards? Is that
that's exactly what I'm saying. They're going to stick it to the consumer because they can. And again, this is one of the bigger problems, as you've seen. We continue to lose competition for Walmart, for Amazon, because they're so much of a behemoth in size that they destroy any business that can compete with them.
What about price controls? I mean, something like to provide, to prevent price gouging. I just picked up my kid from college, and in a little tiny town in the middle of nowhere in flyover country, and to get I don't really have any objection to the fact that all the hotels were sold out. But I kind of have an objection to a hotel that's normally $90 a night now being $900 a night. Shouldn't that be illegal? That level of price gouging?
It's hard to say. I think this is where we've gotten away from a true free market and everything. For example, when I used to go to New York once a month, okay, every month the rate would be 1 month. The rate for a room was $400, then it was $1,000. And I just went to the hotel. I went to a small boutique hotel. And I said, look, I'll make you a deal. I'm coming every month. Here's what I want to pay. You want to work with me or not? Okay. And they did work with me. But I think that if Americans and price discovery, if the Americans stop going to these events, obviously we know what just happened. You're bringing up that. And of course, what just happened in any of these major events in a small town, all these hotels are going to gouge them out. And if people would say, hey, I'm not going to go, I'm not going to pay those prices.
And I didn't.
And I don't blame you. I wouldn't either. That's the point.
Right.
If people would wake up and smell the coffee and say, screw you, I'm not coming because you're going to gouge me on price, I think you'd find out that eventually the prices will resolve themselves. But unfortunately, because of the Federal Reserve, because of a lot of organizations that we have, we've kind of destroyed the price discovery market. It's, again, and I think that is a bigger problem.
Algorithms are only going to make it worse too, right? Like, on everything. I mean, like, for example, real estate, all the landlords use these algorithmic services to maximize their rents. And
that rents are going up. If mortgage rates go up, rents are going up because the people can't afford to buy a house. So now they have to go and rent.
Exactly.
And who controls most of the rental properties in the world? Blackstone? Or BlackRock, one of the two.
BlackRock, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. They control most of the rental properties. So all they're doing is padding their coffers with more money, taking advantage of poor Americans, okay, that are stuck because they can't buy a house. They're forced to go
that's my socialist instinct. Like these really bad price gougers should be reined in my opinion.
Well, Donald Trump has responded to that. For example, starting out with price controls, and now they're saying, I don't know, people from both parties are saying that he's, that's a communist tactic, that he's
yes, it is
about price controls. But it's like the guy is damned if he does and damned if he doesn't. So which is it? Do you want him to
Richard Nixon wasn't a communist, and he did price controls. Although the corporations hated him.
I personally do not want price controls. I personally want to let the markets dictate, but it also takes the part of the consumer to hurt the business by not giving them their money. Okay. Unfortunately, many people in our country are so spoiled and they have so much capital. Again, the corporations, they don't care about the 900 a night or 9,000 a night. They're going to pay it anyways, right? Would that not be correct?
Yeah.
So unfortunately, 10% of the population invests heavily in the markets. 10% control a lot of these things. So they're going to go to the sporting events. I mean, you go to a Super Bowl. How much is it to go to a Super Bowl? $1,000 to stand up and get a terrible seat. I mean, but that's where people have to stand up and be counted and say, we're not going to pay those ridiculous prices. And if we would get that, then we would get true markets. Again, I'm not a big fan of government. And I'm not a big fan of government putting in price controls. I think that Trump has the right idea as to what he's trying to do. And I think that Moody's is trying to do the opposite. And again, I think there's still a lot of people, and I don't want to mention names, but George Soros and guys like that are behind the scenes that are trying to destroy what Trump is trying to accomplish. Okay. So that's kind of what I think.
Bubba, let's talk about the economic forecast. What do you think later this year, next year? Are we going to be looking at a recession or something different? Where are you? Are you bearish or bullish?
I think we're in a recession right now. Okay. I think we've been in a recession from when Biden was still in office. I think we're still in a recession. And I think that the fact is, I think if President Trump's policies are going to work and what he wants to work, it's going to get uglier before it gets better. Okay. And I think that, again, I think you'll see some selling in the market. One of the big problems from a stock market issue right now is we have very low volumes in markets right now, historically low volumes.
Why?
Not enough participation. I believe that, again, if we go back to that 10%, it does mostly investing. I believe a lot of people aren't making enough money. So they've stopped putting in money in their 401ks. They've stopped putting money in their IRAs because they need the money to live day to day. I think that when you look around, you see that people, yes, restaurants, that the wealthy are living just fine, but they always live fine. Yeah. Those who are struggling more than ever. They're getting a nice break now in the price of gasoline, which has come down fairly dramatically. But I think we do see a pretty substantial haircut in the equity market. But again, right now you're dealing with something that's a unique anomaly, which is low volume, high volatility equals no liquidity. So the markets don't have a lot of liquidity right now either, which again goes back to when you look at the central banking system, not just the Federal Reserve here, but around the globe, at the damage that they have done to overall economies by destroying the overall dollars. I mean, let's face it, the fiat currency system is the most criminal, manipulated garbage system ever, because not one currency has anything that backs it except for the full faith and credit of the governments that they represent, which, again, governments don't know how to save money. If we lived like the government did, we'd be in bankruptcy court or jail.
Bubba, we got a viewer question for you, and then we'll cut you loose here. Viewer Adrian in Europe says, why doesn't the Fed target asset prices, especially in housing, when setting interest rates?
Well, they are trying to deal with housing prices when they set interest rates, but again, they're just trying to let's forget the Fed. The Fed's mandate, which they're so far off, is ridiculous, but is stability and jobs. Okay, they're not supposed to be playing with the interest rate market on a monthly basis. I mean, I'm old enough to remember when people used to guess what Alan Greenspan was carrying in his old briefcase when he was walking into the meeting. The Fed should have no concern. Again, this goes back to allowing the free markets to trade. They don't allow the free markets to trade. If we had true free markets, the housing market would have never exploded the way it did, because interest rates would have never come as cheap as they were. You know, the true interest rate right now, the 10-year notes right now are about 4.6%. Okay. Mm-hmm. But if you go out and you wanted to borrow money, okay, from a bank, okay, you'd pay 7 or 8%. Mortgages are 7.5% now. Right. And if you didn't have a great credit score and you went to like one of those peer-to-peer lenders like Prosper or Cabbage or one of those places, your interest rate would be 14 or 15%. And of course, we know credit cards are 27 or 28%. So the problem is that we don't allow the markets to trade freely, which throws every price out of whack. And more damage has been done by the Federal Reserve to asset prices than any other single group in the world.
Hopefully that answers Adrian's question and makes some sense. But yeah, we're definitely watching what's happening because the markets have obviously, Bubba, been super turbulent the past 100 days. We're still watching deals being brokered by the president. Whatever happened with China.
Until today, after the big sell-off, they've already recovered all that. I mean, I think the markets are overvalued right here myself. I mean, be clear, I'm always 100% invested. I'm personally hedged. I don't ever get out, but I do have hedge positions on so that I'm protected to the downside. But I certainly do believe that we are overvalued. And this was more, in my opinion, a bear market rally, which are usually vicious, which his rally was pretty vicious. I was shocked that we didn't see more reaction off of the Moody's rate downgrade. But overall, I think
it's because it happened before and it wasn't the end of the world, right?
No, it's actually never the end of the world. It really is the individuals who panic, who throw up when things are going bad, and they think that this is the end of the world. Okay, it's an old trading term from the floor when people are puking it out, and nobody really puked over the weekend. That was pretty interesting when you look at the overall price of the market.
Is this because of the
down that much?
Quick follow-up question. Is this due to the lower participation rate by sort of middle-class schlubs, and the more of the people, the higher percentage of the market is dominated by more educated,
more
frequent
sophisticated
investors? Yeah.
Yes, I think that is a great statement. I think because the people that were going to panic and puke out did on the last time down, and they have not recovered to come back.
That's how my mom was as an investor.
So I think this is being more controlled by the people who have money. And if you have money, you know that in history, there's been no greater return than the United States stock market in the history.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks, Bubba.
Sit tight is basically, I think, the takeaway.
Always sit tight.
As
long as you don't get companies and you're not gambling with garbage and you have money in that you can afford, always sit tight is my advice.
I personally think that's good advice. I'm not rich, but I'm in the markets. But maybe I'm, not the lay person. I'm pretty lay, but not that lay. So I sit tight. Sit tight. It'll be fine. I don't think people actually care anymore, Bubba, about Moody's, about Fitch, and I don't think that the sophisticated investor actually cares about.
Well, they have to care.
I think they look at it as an opportunity to buy. To tell you the truth.
Yeah, exactly right. Thank you so much,
Thank you,
Todd.
guys. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Bubba.
Always a pleasure to be with you.
All right, take care.
Always a pleasure. Founder of BubbaTrading.com. Go check out Bubba's stuff there. Always a good time talking to Bubba. He knows his stuff. He's been doing this a long time. I mean,
it's a little freaky though, because he looks better every time I see him. I'm like, by the time he's 100, is he going to be like hot as shit? Like, what the hell is going on?
Like Benjamin buttoning everything. I was like,
yeah. It's a little
where
worrisome.
are his glasses? Like, what's happening here? He doesn't need glasses all of a sudden. But yeah, I think, I'm not a super sophisticated, investor, but I know I'm just not real skittish. My husband is actually the one that's more volatile and skittish and be like, I gotta get out. We got to do this. And I'm like, dude, just chill. It's fine. Just sit. It's a little dip. We're not day traders unless you're paying.
Don't be a big dip.
Unless it's your thing that you do 20 times a day, 30 times, like trading all day, you're not going to stand to gain anything by jumping in and out that day from that one trade, right? Unless you're literally a day trader and you're doing this all day.
Don't do what everyone else is doing. That's always an important rule.
Just sit tight. I have a particular stock that I invested in, and he was like, when we got in, it shot up very quickly, and then after a few months, it dipped, it took a tumble, and he was like, "Oh, we should have sold," when it hit its peak, but I wrote it out the last couple of years, and now it's like up 30x. So I'm like, well, just chill, dude. That was the thing a couple of years ago, and it's worked itself out post-COVID. So, here we are. Anyway, Do you want to do one more thing, one more headline,
Yeah,
Ted?
yeah, let's do it.
I think, yeah.
There's stuff to
since we have
talk
the time.
about, but we're gonna have to be short and sweet.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because I think this, which one? Headline 2?
Yeah, let's do it. We could, yeah. All right, here we go.
It's weird.
All right. The father of the 25-year-old dude who the authorities think was responsible for that car bombing outside the fertility clinic in Cali has revealed his son's troubling behavior as a kid. So this was the American Reproductive Centers Clinic in Palm Springs, California. And it was, if you see the pictures, it was just absolutely destroyed by this blast on Saturday morning, which injured 4 people and killed the bomber himself, Guy Edward Bartkus. They always mention, if you do something bad or evil, they always mention your middle name. Bartkus was identified as the key suspect by the FBI. On Sunday, his estranged father, Richard, later talked to the media about his son, saying that he once burned down the family house when he was 9 years old. The FBI called the attack an intentional act of terrorism targeting the clinic, which offers the usual IVF and egg freezing services for such places. The manifesto written by the suspect was circulated online, and it espoused mortalism, the idea that death for all is preferable to living. I mean, I always feel like, you know what, there's no, in terms of suicide and mortalism, you're going to be dead like forever. So what's the rush? Enjoy your, yeah,
you're already here.
Yeah, enjoy the 80-year run. It's a flash in the pan. It's got its ups and downs, but you're gonna have plenty of time to enjoy being dead. Anyway,
you're already here. Like, it makes no sense. And we should note, Ted, ironically, I mean, I'm still saddened for the family of this weird kid that, obviously has some emotional distraught issues. Ironically, the part that he bombed out, as bad as this looks on the screen, and it shattered, here.
He parked in the back. Yeah.
The back. Ironically, because he's an anti-natalist person, none of the fetuses or the specimens or whatever, like the lab itself, everything survived.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So the detectives also found an audio recording that he said he described his views as being anti-life, that he hates IVF, and he hates that he existed because nobody got my consent to bring me here, and he hopes to sterilize this planet of the disease of life. I mean, obviously he was a deeply disturbed individual. Bartkus, who lived in 29 Palms, that's the burbs, basically, about an hour away from the clinic, was said to have died when his car blew up. Parts of the building were blown apart, and Manila, as you say, the lab survived, but the building was pretty fucked up. 4 bystanders were injured. Their wounds were pretty minor, though. The clinic was closed at the time. Bartkus reportedly set up a camera and a tripod to film the attack, but apparently the footage never got uploaded online. No word on whether the cops recovered that. Bartkus's dad, Richard, 75 years old, said that he hadn't seen his kid in 11 years. He described his son as a smart, good kid before he started changing. He said that he had burned down the house while playing with matches when he was a kid. At about 11 o'clock in the morning local time Saturday, that's when the bomb went off. And so anyway, one person did die. The mayor of Palm Springs, Ron DeHart, I think he's the acting mayor, actually, told CBS News that the source was in or near the vehicle. It was in the vehicle. And a witness saw the tripod in the car park by the explosion. The incident took place near several businesses. So it was like in a little strip mall there. Yeah. I mean, mortalism is a fascinating idea. Like, just like we shouldn't be alive. We should all be dead. It's like, wow.
Yeah. I don't even know what
understand
to
the people.
say about that.
I was friends with a cartoonist who favored the Human Extinction Project, where basically their theory was that human beings had fucked up the planet. Hard to argue with that. That's
fine. I agree with that.
Clearly true. Fine. And I mean, obviously that's true. And therefore, the more of us go extinct, the more of us die, or at least don't reproduce, the better it would be for the planet.
Yeah, but you should have to get my consent for that.
Right. Don't blow me up as I'm trying to get born. Right, anyway, it just sort of doesn't work that way. I mean,
Like,
No,
you
I mean,
can't.
obviously, that's a disturbing. This is the ultimate nihilism, right? Ultimate.
Yes, ultimate nihilism, and I think that just speaks to this place we're at with the lack of mental health care for the general population, and especially people his age group. They're Gen Z, right? Like, they're in your son's
Yes.
generation.
Yes.
A lot of these kids, because of they are native to online life, they're native to social media. A lot of these thoughts like permeate into their brains without them really understanding, what it all means and how, and there's no place for them to get help. We have a shit healthcare system. They have nobody to talk to about these weird thoughts that swirl their heads, and they just keep falling deeper and deeper into the rabbit hole by watching YouTube or whatever.
That's
That
true.
this kid, 25 years old, young man, how could you possibly think a fetus can give consent? Like, that on its face is
Well, I think
illogical.
I think he knew that. Look, here's the thing. I want to be intellectually rigorous here, and it's entirely possible that mortalism is right. I just don't believe in it. But I mean, the thing is that the human race, basically, the number one thing the human race tries to do is to prolong its own life as individuals and to self-propagate. And it seems like, I mean, maybe we're wrong about that, but it seems that that's what all life tries to do, even plants and fungi and stuff.
That's right.
So it's kind of like you're basically asking this species, because we have self-consciousness, to choose not to do the most innate thing that living things do. And that's
just to continue on.
Let's just say this, that's going to be a big ask. Let's put it that way.
We'll leave
this is
that
not this is a philosophy that's not likely to catch on.
No,
I think maybe we should very quickly take a minute or two to take note of the Romanian election results. I'm more interested in the media coverage of this
story. Let's do that real quick.
But anyway, the centrist
surprise, Ted.
The centrist mayor of Bucharest, Nicosor Dan, who basically has his last name as his first name and his first name as his last name, won the Romania's presidential election yesterday in a quote-unquote shock upset over a right-wing nationalist who was basically in the Trump mold. Official results show Dan with about 54% of the vote in the EU/NATO country of about 19 million people. Not a huge country. Trump supporter George Simon got 46%. Dan, who's a mathematician, 55 years old, basically made a last-minute dash to the top. After weeks of being behind in the polls, we all kind of thought that Simeon was going to win. Anyway, he's against aid to Ukraine, and he's not very much into the EU. He wants rapprochement with Russia, which, of course, has historic ties to Romania. Simeon was the top vote getter in the first round of the election, with 41% of the vote cast. So here's the thing, Manila.
Let's not forget this guy, Simeon, replaced the do-over vote that the EU and judges
what I wanted to get
with
into.
Calin Georgescu.
So that's what I'm interested in, right? So NPR reported this story this morning, hardly even mentioning the fact that this was a do-over vote, right? And so that basically what happened was Simeon won the first round, and then a court said, the evil
Georgescu won.
Right, but his party. And the Ruskies had allegedly, although there's no evidence for this, and Russia denies it,
did a social media
had interfered with the election. So the Supreme Court of Romania, I guess, had the power to overturn the election and say, so this election result doesn't count. So this election happened as a result. Now, it's kind of like, that's an important part of the story, Manila, right? Like, and so they're saying, well, right-wingers
started yesterday for them.
Right-wingers who support that party are upset. Well, I'd be upset too. Okay, this is almost like pulling what the DNC did to Bernie. It's like they put their greasy thumbs on the scale, and if you supported that Georgescu guy, you're pissed. You're really pissed. And I don't think this just goes away and they sweep it under the rug. And they're like, it's a triumph of democracy. I'm like, if democracy is canceling election results, I guess it's a triumph of democracy. Okay,
well,
whatever.
Ted, this is the new.
I'm just trying to be fair. I wouldn't have voted for this guy at all, the right winger, because I'm not a right winger. But I mean, you know, hello, integrity.
You have to cancel democratic elections, in order to save democracy. We've established that.
Nothing is more democratic than anti-democracy.
Just like there's nothing more pro earth and pro life than every mass extinction of that's the most.
Nothing says love like hatred.
That's right. So this is it. So there you are. Like,
we have always been at war with Eurasia. We have never been at war with East Asia.
Like, I was surprised but not shocked at this outcome, because Ted, we knew that the whole reason the do-over thing had to happen, because Georgescu won in the fall in the real elections, was because the pro-EU and pro-NATO, interfering warmongers were not going to allow that to happen. They didn't like the outcome of the democratic process, so they forced a do-over, and then here we are with this guy out of nowhere, a math teacher.
But to
math
pretend
teacher
like that
wins.
But to pretend like that never happened, that's the part that I'm like, wow, that's some serious balls out censorship. That's all I wanted to talk about. So anyway, we talked about it. We did it. We're done.
Fair. All right. We're going to leave that there. Unless we have another word from another sponsor. No. Okay. We are good to go. Thank you everybody for tuning in. It's a pretty Monday for us here.
Gorgeous here.
DC.
Gorgeous.
So
oh my God.
You guys have a great day.
Amazing.
Hopefully it's a good sign. It's a harbinger of good stuff for the rest of the week, because we had shit weather. We had trees down over the weekend by my house here in Northern Virginia, and the tree just like crushed a woman as she's driving along the highway. A tree just came down squarely over. Oh my God!
That's God smiting her ass.
That is God. Like, geez,
it's sort of like just rubbing you out like a bug.
Two people that happened to on the roadways, like about 2 miles away from me, and the storm blew through. 20 minutes, gone.
I wonder if that must have been the remnants of that storm system that spawned so many hurricanes tornadoes in the Midwest.
Yeah, because we're mid-Atlantic here in the DC area, and it blew through for 20 minutes, and 2 people.
There was some major damage in Kentucky. Right.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Major tornadoes and floods. But anyway, hopefully it's a beautiful week, and let's try not to kill each other. Thank you guys for tuning in. We'll be back tomorrow at 10 a.m. Eastern time. We appreciate you being here. Please make sure you hit smash that like button, the follow. If you're in the position to join, please join us on Rumble Premium. We are working our brains on what to bring for the Rumble Premium content.
We have some good ideas
going forward. Yeah, so you can join us there. More F-bombs to be had. Thank you, guys. We'll be back tomorrow. Adios, amigos. Bye.
Bye.